Hello, everybody. This is our first event of many over the course of the day, and we are starting off with the boom. You'll know what I mean when you start hearing Nachliel present. If you haven't heard him before, you're in for a treat. Many times when we learn Tanakh, it's hard to kind of see the Tanakh in front of our eyes. And what Nachliel is going to do in a really brilliant and unique way is bring us on a little bit of a journey, hopefully to help you understand Yirmiyahu, the psukim that you learn in a deeper way by deeply understanding the history, the archaeology. He knows a lot. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to unmute yourself, to contribute, to put something in the chat. He's all about asking those questions, and I don't want to take any more time away from Nachliel. I'm gonna have to jump out, but I can't wait to watch this tour afterwards. Nachliel, all yours. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you, Dovi. I'm going to continue to admit people in as we go. And I'm also recording this, so it'll be available later for people who want to catch up. So if you missed a few things, that's totally fine. So as mentioned, please, if you have a question or something, you can either write in the chat or unmute yourself. Let me just explain what we're going to do. So in about, half an hour to 45 minutes, I don't want to take the whole hour. You need some time to refresh. What I'd like to do is to go over, to do a virtual tour / presentation showing us things from archaeology and from history that we've found and that are placed in different museums or locations that help us understand Sefer Yirmiyahu a little bit better. Yirmiyahu, first of all, just as an overview, I'm going to be focusing more on Yerushalayim and Bavel. There's a lot of other things that are going on in Yirmiyahu, the Nevuot La'amim. I'm not talking about that because our time is short. So I want you to be familiar with some of the most significant discoveries in archaeology that relate to Sefer Yirmiyahu and to Tanakh. And I'm, of course, inviting you to ask more questions and to write. There's so much more to see. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But hopefully by the end of this, you'll recognize all of those images that are on this cover, even though some of them look really boring. Okay, so first of all, what do we mean when we say Bavel? Bavel, this entire area in pink, basically was the largest empire in the ancient Near East. It was larger than Ashur. It was only the only one that surpassed it was Persia, which is not the topic for today, but it went pretty much all the way from the Persian Gulf all the way to Egypt, and at some points controlled parts of Egypt. So it was a very powerful kingdom. And we know throughout Yirmiyahu and Melachim, Egypt is always a power which was against Bavel. And so we constantly have Malchei Yehuda trying to side with the kings with the pharaohs in order to fight against Bavel, because Paro is right there and Bavel is far away. So what's he going to do, right? Except that didn't really help him, as we know. Okay, so I'd like to start this tour with a location which has some very, very special, incredible finds that have to do with Sefer Yirmiyahu. So I'm going to start off right here. I hope you all see we're Eretz Yisrael, where we're looking at. And there's 3 points that we're going to talk about here in Eretz Yisrael. And for other ones, we're going to go to different parts of the world. All right, so let's get started. First of all, Yerushalayim. Our story, the main part of the story I'm going to focus about is really the last 11 years, even last few months of Yerushalayim. Before it was destroyed and shortly after. So the last 11 years from Yechoniah, from Galut Yechoniah, all the way to Gedaliyahu. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. So starting off with a site that I hope that you're familiar with. It's a site which is not a 10-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now. It's known as Ir David, City of David National Park. And here we are. So we're looking at the Kotel. Right here on top, you see the Dome of the Rock. And this area below here, where it says City of David, is a very famous visitor center. I'm sure you've all, if you haven't been there, you've heard of it. There's the Silwan Tunnel, which is what most opinions hold that that's Chizkiyahu's water cistern. I'm telling you the truth. There are those who argue against it, but most accept it as fact. And every tour guide will tell you, yes, this is the fact. But this is what many people believe, and it could be true. I believe it, but that this is Chizkiyahu, but we're talking about later. So this is Ir David. Now, this is the area where when we dug, and I'm going to show you some of the places, we found things which are relevant to the Churban. So let's go and see one of the areas. I hope you don't get dizzy by this Google Earth stuff. Okay, so we're now inside the visitor center. I'm going to look up so you see where we are. Okay, right up there is the entrance to the visitor center. You can go and get an ice cream or get souvenirs. I'm going to show you some of the souvenirs you can get. And this area here below is houses which are built onto the side of the hill. And there are several important things going on in this picture. Number one, there is a stone here with a hole inside it. That's actually very important. This one I think is a copy. The original might be in a museum because you can jump in and somebody can steal it. But this stone with the hole is very important. Okay. Looking up here is a building, and they sort of reconstructed the second floor. And they found here on the bottom finds which have to do with the destruction of Beit Rishon, the destruction of Yerushalayim by the Babylonians. So you see the name here, the burnt room and the house of the Boule. What are Boule? I'm going to show you what Boule are. Let me just let a few people in. Okay. I mentioned that you can go to the gift shop. So this is one of the things you can get at the gift shop. It's a bula. It's a little piece of clay. This is, of course, a copy. It's not an original. And it says on it Beit David in ancient Hebrew. That's just because it's a marketing thing. And here is a copy of a bula, which is a seal impression. In other words, you take your ring, your seal, and you press into a piece of clay and then close that around a letter. So it's a seal. It seals the letter shut. And if you open the letter, it breaks the seal, right? So we know that that's called a chotam, is what you wear in your hand. And this one is from Chizkiyahu HaMelech. The original is in the Israel Museum. That's more for Yeshayahu or Melachim, but it's not for here, okay? But what I want to show you is some of the things that were found here below in what they're calling the burnt house, like right here below. So let me just share that screen with you, just a moment. Okay, so first thing, this is a picture from the excavations when they were digging here. We're not talking, not too long ago. And they found here, you look carefully on the floor, you see that there's arrowheads, and you also see a lot of black ash. And that black ash, I actually have some of it here in a bag. I wish I could make it a little clearer, but this is not something you want running around. But I have black ash here as well from this. These are ashes from when the Babylonians, the Bavlim, burnt Yerushalayim, which is described, of course, in the later Psukim, and it's described at the end of Melachim, right? So you're looking at the destruction layer, which is really incredible to see. You're also looking at these sling stones and arrowheads, and we find that there's two different types of arrowheads. There's the Jewish arrowheads and the Babylonian arrowheads. So you can really live the battle as you're standing here, which is really scary. Like you can feel that you're in the area in which the destruction happened. The other thing which I wanted to show you is that stone with a hole. So what do you think this is? Found in a house from the end of Beit Rishon. Welcome to speak up or write. You're digging, you find this. What is this thing? It's about this big. Yeah.
Asher Yatzar.
Good call. Who is that, Amichai? Yeah, Asher Yatzar. Yeah, so this is a luxurious item which only wealthy people were able to afford. It's called a toilet seat. Now, I'm going to share with you, I'm not going to get too gross, okay? But I just want you to know that in archaeology, you can use microscopes and all sorts of chemical testing to find out what was inside this. And if you're an archaeologist, you need to know what you're signing up for, because sometimes you're going to have to test for things that you didn't really think you wanted to touch. But it's okay. It's 2,500 years old, okay? So, but what they discovered inside here is the remains of two types of bacteria, which are a result of disease that comes from hunger. So not only did we find ashes and arrowheads and sling stones from the war against Nebuchadnezzar, from the houses of Yerushalayim that were destroyed, we also found remnants of the hunger, the ra'av that was taking place there, because this shows you inside it, what remains is bacteria that have to do with hunger. So it's kind of gross, but this is something that was found in Yerushalayim in here. Okay, next stop. So that's here in Ir David. I just want to make sure we're all seeing it. Hang on. Okay. So that's here in Ir David, and that's what we were looking at right now, that little stone with the hole. That's where it was found. So this whole area is houses from Beit Rishon that were built all the way down. Ignore the road, that's for tourists. And you're overlooking Nahal Kidron. You're overlooking Silwan. Okay. That's what we're looking at. Okay. Our next stop is going to be in the Israel Museum. So I'm jumping into the Israel Museum to an area that has to do with Malchei Yehuda and Israel. So just to orient ourselves, this picture up here, this capital, the head of a pillar holding up a building, we found dozens of these throughout Israel and Yehuda and Ever HaYarden. The assumption is that these are from a royal building, and one of them was found right where we were standing in Ir David. And so Professor Eilat Mazar concludes that this must be from the palace of David HaMelech. This is obviously argued in archaeology because archaeologists never agree with each other, but this is the reason that this is on one of the Israeli coins. Do you recognize this from any of the Israeli coins? So this is from on the 5 shekel coin. And the reason it's on the 5 shekel coin is because the modern Israeli coins use archaeology from Malchut Yehuda, mostly from Beit Sheni when we had coins, but also pictures of stuff from Beit Rishon, like the picture of a harp on the 1/2 shekel, which was, by the way, discovered to be a fake, but no one wants to talk about it because they already made the coin. But this is royal, okay? Now I'm going to take you into a little room over here. So let me just move around so you see where we are, right? A lot of very important things there. This tiny little area here looks kind of boring until you move up close and you see what is found inside it. So I have a slides to complement it, but I want to show you some of the things that are here. Okay, so right here, these tiny little dots are all boule, just like these that you can get at the gift shop at Ir David. They're pieces of clay that are stamped with names of people who were important people in the administration, in the palace of Malchei Yehuda towards the end of the Beit HaMikdash, okay? We've also found some rings as well that are here, and I'm going to show you the pictures of them. But what's really going to knock your socks off is some of the names that were found on them. And again, these were found in Ir David, where we were just standing. So let me go back to that slide. Okay, so here's a picture of many of them. This is what they look like. You're looking at rings. This is an Egyptian style ring that you put on your finger, and when you pull it off, it kind of rolls upside down, and then the belly of that stone has your name, and you'd sign with it. And it's written backwards, of course, because when it's on clay, you read it regularly, right? Okay, so here's 3 of them, which are right in that gallery that I'm showing you in the Israel Museum. Now, this is written in Ktav Ivri or Ksav Ivri, which is the ancient Hebrew alphabet that was used in the time of the first Beit HaMikdash. So anything that you find from the first Beit HaMikdash is going to be in this Ktav. Second Beit HaMikdash, we already have what we call Ktav Ashuri, the stuff that we know how to read easily. This, you can, within 20 minutes, you can learn how to read this fairly well. Okay, I have a lecture on it on YouTube, by the way, on how to read the amazing Hebrew alphabet. You can look for it later. Okay, so I want to show you the names. And I'm going to ask you, since you're learning Yirmiyahu, how many of these names do you recognize? Okay, this is what they say. So we have Gemariyahu ben Shafan, Yehuchal ben Shelemiyahu, and Ligdalyahu ben Pashchur. Now, if I'd ask you to raise your hand who recognized Gemariyahu ben Shafan, I'm sure everybody does, right? Good. But who are the other 2 people? This is a great story. Does anybody know who the other 2 people are? They're in Yirmiyahu. They show up twice. Give you a clue, the beginning of Perek Lamed Chet, Pasuk Aleph. Yeah? So
when Yehoiakim wanted to burn the Sefer.
Nice. That's close. There's a Pashchur there, but that's not Gedaliah ben Pashchur. That's Pashchur something else. So you're close. Good.
No,
that's in Lishkat Gemariyahu ben Shafan HaSofer. Right. So that's in his Lishka. That's Gemariyahu ben Shafan. But who are Gedaliah ben Pashchur and Yehuchal ben Shelemiyahu? Who are these guys? You just let somebody in. So I'm gonna, one second. There we go. So I'm gonna show you the pasuk where they show up. Okay, so here it is. וישמע שפטיה בן מתן וגדליהו בן פשחור ויוכל בן שלמיהו ופשחור בן מלכיה, that's the one you were talking about, את הדברים אשר ירמיהו מדבר על העם לאמור. So here Yirmiyahu says, is give yourself over to Nebuchadnezzar and live, or else you'll die. And this is, he's in Chatzar HaMatara. He's closed in the palace, right? And this is where the king says, go and shut him up. We don't want to hear him talk. He's going to write that whole story. 2 of the 4 names mentioned of these Sarim, 2 of the 4 names have been found in the palace. That's incredible. Now, Eilat Mazal, the department head of the archaeology department in the Hebrew University, said that if she would find one of these bula with a 3rd name from this pasuk, she would never publish it because no one would believe her. This is incredible. Okay, so these are the bula, and I want you to be aware that there's a lot of bulot that have been found. We're hopefully going to see another one soon, but we have a few more sites to visit. So I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to take you to two very important places in Eretz Yehuda. Just a moment. Okay. So now we are back in Ir David, and I want to move to another 2 places. Okay. So now, I'm asking you, as people who are studying Tanakh, you're studying about the Khurban, you're reading Yirmiyahu, Lamed Daled, Nebuchadnezzar is coming towards the city, he's destroying Yehuda, and we have the mention of 2 cities. They're here in yellow, Lachish and Azekah. What do we know about Lachish and Azekah? What is their significance? Anything that happened there? It's a tough one, huh? So, before I take you to see some stuff, I want you to recognize that when you need to see the cities where they are located to appreciate their importance. So let's look at it like this. Here's Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is on the Har. It's on the mountain range, right? Harei Yehuda. Below here, we're sort of on the border with the Shfela, where right here we have the Plishtim and so on. What Nebuchadnezzar comes in from the north, as we know, Mitzafon Tipatach Hara'ah, right? He comes in from the north. And what Nebuchadnezzar does is he conquers city by city around the coast, and then he gradually zeroes into Yerushalayim. You don't go and attack Yerushalayim first because of backup. You don't want to be attacked from the flanks. You need to make sure that you're getting rid of all of the support that Yerushalayim can have. Lachish and Azekah are the last stand before you make your way into Yerushalayim. These are the cities that are defending the hill. Okay, Lachish and Azekah. Now, Lachish shows up in Yehoshua. It took Yehoshua 2 days to conquer it. Lachish and Azekah shows up with the story of David and Goliath in Shmuel. Ben Lachish, Ben Socho, Ben Azekah, Be'efes Damim. That's Emek Ha'elah. Right? That's near Beit Shemesh. You see here is Beit Shemesh, right? Lachish and Azekah. Now, I want to show you some sites from Lachish and from Azekah. But to do that, we're going to have to go to the museum, actually. Okay, so first of all, here's the pasuk that we're talking about. There's a few cities that remain still standing. El Lachish ve'el Azekah. Ki hena nish'aru be'arei Yehuda arei mivtzar. Lachish and Azekah are the last cities standing, arei mivtzar, fortified cities, the last cities standing as we're about to destroy Yerushalayim. So Lachish and Azekah are very important. They show up again and again. They show up with Sancheriv earlier, right? They're important cities. Now, I want to show you, I've been on both of them on excavations. This is Tel Lachish. I've shown you where it is on the map. And we're standing outside. There's a sign that says Lachish. And we're standing below the siege ramps. This is from Sancheriv. It's a different story. You can go up to Lachish. And here's pictures from Azekah. Now, in Azekah, these are just social media posts that I made. But Tel Azekah, I'm going to show you some stuff that I have from Azekah. And then we're going to go into the British Museum and we're going to read some of the stuff that's been found. So first of all, Azekah. Azekah was destroyed earlier by Sancheriv. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when I was digging there a few summers ago, I got to keep, here I have in a Ziploc bag, it's hard to see with the camera, but I have ashes from the destruction of Azekah by Sancheriv. And I also have jug handles, like the one here in this picture, which were Jewish jug handles from Chizkiyahu, Achaz, and so on. So I got to keep some of the stuff. Go on digs. Sometimes you can get permission to keep stuff. Okay. Now, I want to show you what was actually found in these places. So to do that, I'm going to take you to the British Museum, because in Lachish now, what you're going to see is a site, right? You're not going to really see too much. So let's take you to the British Museum where they're hosting some of the letters that were found. Okay, hold on tight. Don't get too dizzy. We're about to crash land in London. Boom. Oh, okay, let's just pause for a moment there, orient ourselves. Okay. You see the sign, the Iron Age kingdoms, Israel and Judah. And up here is another sign with Ktav Ivri. This has to do with the time of Yoshiyahu, so we're not going to talk about that now. But look at all this stuff. So looking up close, here's a jug, which has like handles like this. These handles are signed, and they say Lamelech on them in Hebrew. That's, of course, related to Sancheriv and Chizkiyahu, so we're not going to talk about that. But here's a lot of arrowheads, like we saw, that were found in Ir David. So we found a lot of these arrowheads around Yerushalayim. And here's more jug handles. And here's weights and more rings from royal rings from the kingdom of Yehuda. And here are some letters. These letters are very, very important. They were found on pieces of clay with ink. This is how letters were passed back in the day. We didn't have paper yet. So people would write with ink on clay and send it as messages between cities, right? So these are letters which were found in Lachish. Now, I'm giving you some background, which is going to help us understand what we're about to read better. But these letters are from the destruction layer of Lachish from the time that we just read those psukim of. We just read about Nebuchadnezzar about to destroy Lachish and Azekah. Okay? So now let's go and read what they actually say. Okay? Now, they're written in Ktav Ivri, as you can see. However, if you change the letters to Hebrew letters, which is not so hard to do, you can actually understand what it says. So try to read what it says now and see how many words can we recognize. Again, this is written on a piece of clay from the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? So look. Yashma Hashem et Adoni ata kayom shmuot tov. Basically, Baruch Hashem, b'sorot tovot. Ve'ata kechol asher shalach Adoni ken asa avdecha. Did whatever you asked me to do. Katavti al hadelet, which is probably this piece of clay is a delet. Kechol asher shalach Adoni elai. So I wrote everything my master told me to write. V'chishalach Adoni al dvar bet harpad asher ein sham adam. Something about a place. Usmachiyahu, which is a name, sounds like a very much a Tanakh name. Lekachash ma'ayahu ve'yaleu ha'ira. Now there's some missing words there which we're guessing what's written, but basically some kind of message was taken into the city. Now side 2, and we're looking at side 2 actually, and this is the most exciting one. Ki'im betesubat haboker, probably eshlacheu, sent him first thing in the morning. Now here's the key. Ve'yeda ki el masuot lachish nachnu shomrim, kechol ha'otot asher natan Adoni. I just want you to know that we are protecting the masuot of Lachish. What are masuot? Remember the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah that talks about how we send the message of Kiddush HaChodesh all the way to Bavel. We light a bonfire from hilltop to hilltop to hilltop to hilltop. Those are masuot. They're used as a messenger system in times of war. It's a quick message. You just light the bonfire with some kind of simanim and people know what it means. So apparently they're protecting the masuot of Lachish according to whatever the signs are. Ki lo nir'eh azekah. We can no longer see azekah. What does this mean? First of all, Lachish and azekah, here we are. Now I'm gonna be very honest with you. I can give you the dramatic explanation to this, but I'm gonna give you both options. There are 2 ways to understand this. The first one is, this is obviously a military type of message, okay? We know that because we found the other ones as well. We found like 18 of them. you can't physically see Azekah from the particular point in which you're standing, and therefore the message needs to be brought a certain way. That's one way to understand it. The more exciting way to understand it, which some archaeologists agree on, is that Azekah has already fallen by Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. We no longer see the signs from Azekah. The lights are going out. Yeah. And so we're sending you a message now, but you need to know we are not getting any messages. Nobody's answering the phone in Azekah. You are reading stage by stage of the Khurban as we're progressing. And you're seeing it in something that you can hold in your hand that you found when you're digging it in the earth. That is incredible to be able to see such a thing, right? So these are known as the Lachish letters. Now, before I end up in our final spot, which is really exciting, and it's going to be a plug into the tour later on today at 4 o'clock, I want to show you something. This is something that I can't really show you on the map, so I'm just going to show you the archaeology. And this is the story of Gedaliah ben Achikam, okay? So, and this relates to stuff we've seen. So we're going to jump ahead for a moment, and then we're going to go back to Galut Yechonia and Galut Tzidkiyahu. Okay, we're going to get there in a moment. So Yochanan ben Kareach, we know, he's the general at the time after the Khurban. Gedaliah ben Achikam is in this place called the Mitzpah. I'm going to show you a picture of the Mitzpah. And it's probably somewhere near Ramallah. There's different opinions as to exactly where it is. Okay, so I'm not going to get into where is Tel Anatzpa. But he's warned that Yishmael ben Netanyah is hired by Baalis, the king of Bnei Ammon, to kill him. And since Yishmael ben Netanyah believes that he is in line, like from Malchut Beit David, he needs to be the governor of Yehuda and not Gedaliah. Okay? So we know there's the famous story. Bless you. We know there's a famous story where he refuses to accept the message that Yishmael ben Netanyah is going to kill him. And he ends up getting everybody killed because he wouldn't take precautions to protect everyone. Fine. So Baalis. Now I want to show you here, first of all, a picture of Tel Anatzba, which is one of two opinions as to where the Mitzpah is. But you see that it's a hilltop, it's a protected area. And we found in a cave in Israel, actually, we found a bula. Now you know what a bula is, which says on it Baalis. Right, Baalis. There's a lot of writing here, but it says Baalis on it, and it's probably that Baalis, which is really cool. So we found something from the story. Okay, now what I'm going to do now, our last stop has to do with Bavel. So what happens with the Galut? So we have two different stages. Okay. The first stage, and this case, I'm going to start with the Psukim because it's going to be the introduction to where we're going to go. So 11 years before the Khurban, we have Galut Yechonia. As we know, Galut Yehoyachin surrenders and is saved. Okay. So Hashem sends a message with Yirmiyahu to Ala Gola, which is going out from Yerushalayim to Bavel. And he says to them as follows, Bnu batim veshevu, nit'u ganot ve'echlu et piryan. I want you to build houses in Bavel. I want you to plant vineyards. I want you to eat their fruit, right? Don't just sit there and moan and mope. I want you to build yourselves up. Like get married, build your families. Don't diminish. I want you to thrive in Bavel. And finally, dirshu et shlom ha'ir asher regleti etchem shama v'yitpalelu ba'adai el Hashem. When you're in Bavel, so to speak, when you go to Shul on Shabbat, I want you to make a mishaberach for Nebuchadnezzar, which sounds kind of crazy, right? But this is where we get it from. Yeah, the idea of praying lishloma shel malchut. Okay, so ki bishloma yeh lachem shalom. Everything's going to be good when you pray for them. Okay, now let's go to Bavel to follow that thread. Hang on. Okay, so we're going to go to two different places. First of all, we're going to go to Bavel, and we're going to enter from the same place that our ancestors entered when they walked into Bavel. I think that my share screen didn't work for that second. Hold on. Okay, so you missed the dizzy part, but that's fine. So here we are. Okay. So here, just see, I'm zooming out to see, you see where we are. We're in Bavel. We are looking at the Nahar HaPrat. We're looking at the Euphrates, and we're looking south. Okay. So this is, if you'd be going down the river, coming in from Eretz Yisrael, this is the entrance you would be making coming into Bavel. And you're looking at the floor plan of the ancient city of Bavel, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world here in Bavel. And let's see how close we can get. Can we press on anything here? Let's see. Doesn't look like it's going anywhere. But we're going to show you. So there was actually a German expedition which excavated here and dug up what remains of the procession way going into the one of the main gates of Bavel, the Ishtar gate. And if it was Germany who excavated here, well, you have to guess where exactly this museum is. We're going to have to go to Germany to see it. So I just warped you straight into the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. But we are now entering the procession way, the same way that Bnei Israel entered, the same way that the Jews entered with Churban Yerushalayim and also with Galut Yechonia. So we're going to get up to the gate. But look to our sides. Beautiful blue glazed bricks of lions. There were about 120 of them marching in. Now, this is going to be a plug for the tour that's going to be at 4 o'clock, because we're going to talk about Daniel and lions and dreams and Shabbat songs and all kinds of cool stuff. But lions and Bavel are very important, okay? So I want you to think about the connection between lions and Yehuda, right? What is the connection between the lions of Bavel and the lions of Yehuda? Here's a reconstruction, by the way. Okay, let's move up. Okay, look at this. The Ishtar gates of Babylon. These are original bricks. A lot of them are reconstructed, but this is the original colors of the gate of Nebuchadnezzar, which according to some Greek opinions was intended to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It didn't make the final cut, but it's one of them. It's a magnificent gate. Now, blue, the color blue back in the day was not easy to make. So this was very impressive. It's like, you know, making something out of, I don't know, platinum, diamond, gold. Blue is very impressive. And you're looking at the Ishtar gate of Bavel. Okay, there's dragons here, there are bulls, and there's lions, and each one of them actually represents a Babylonian Avodah Zarah, different Babylonian god. So we can get into that. It's interesting, but I just want you to see the gates, the actual bricks that we saw when walking into Bavel. Now, I mentioned that Yirmiyahu is trying to encourage us when we go, to give us a message of hope and to tell us that things are going to be okay. So I want to show you some things that were found here by the Ishtar Gate in Iraq, which reflect those psukim. 2 different things, okay? The first one is a little more relevant to the end of Melachim, but it's related to our story. And it's this piece of clay. A piece of clay looks like a cracker, right? It's written in cuneiform, it's Babylonian, but this is basically what it says. Okay, it mentions the daily rations of oil, which is an expensive commodity, given to Yehoiachin, the king of Yehuda, and his children. So not only we have a mention of Yehoiachin Melech Yehuda, who's in captivity in Bavel, but he's being treated well, which is the last psukim of Melachim. Since that's not our topic, I didn't bring the psukim. But I want to actually end with discoveries that were made not too long ago in a part of Bavel. Here's the map of Bavel. This area, which is highlighted in orange on the bottom right. You can see that all? So this is an area which is called El Yahudu. And if you've guessed from the name, yes, that's where the Yehudim were living. It's named as the area where the Jews lived. Okay? And what was found here is really fascinating. What was found here is a lot of these different tablets. Some of them had Aramaic on them, but most of them are in cuneiform. And these are all these little pieces of clay. And they're called the El Yahudu documents because of where they were found. But what's fascinating about them is that these are business transactions. These are business contracts of Jews who are doing business in Bavel from the time of Nebuchadnezzar's successors. In other words, they really took Yirmiyahu's words seriously, and they started rebuilding their economy. And this goes all the way to Koresh Melech Paras. So we have several generations of Jews in Bavel who are doing business, who are trading, building houses, selling fields, right, in Bavel. So that's the closure of our story. Let me see if there's anything else here. Okay. So to end this, what we've basically seen, really al regel achat, really in a nutshell, is that there are several sites in Israel that put together the story of the Churban. We've been to Yerushalayim. We've seen things that were found in Ir David, houses, destruction layers, arrowheads, sling stones, bula, clay. And we've also seen that the museum has a lot of these treasures which you can study. We've seen Lachish and Azekah. We've understood based on their location why they're important. We've gone to the British Museum where we've read the Lachish letters. So the Lachish letters is something you should definitely look into. It's very important. And we've finally gone to Iraq, to Bavel, and to where the Ishtar Gate is in Berlin. And we've spoken about Nebuchadnezzar. Now I'm going to wrap up talking about lions. This is going to be a plug to the next tour, because the next tour at 4 o'clock is going to be in Bavel about Daniel and the dreams of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar and how that connects to Galut and to our some Shabbat songs, which is really a cool story. And that has to do with lions. Yehuda is considered to be a lion, right? And Chazal say in Bereshit Rabbah that just like Yehuda was a lion destroyed by Bavel, who is compared to a lion, so too Bavel will be destroyed, and that's announced by Daniel, who interpreted the famous writing on the wall, Maneh Maneh Takalu Parsin, you're learning Daniel, he comes from Shevet Yehuda. So there's this poetic justice that has to do with lions. But I want to finish with this idea, which is that if you are coming from Yehuda, the proud kingdom of Yehuda, of Yerushalayim, and you see yourself as a lion, and now you're being paraded as a slave in Bavel, seeing lions everywhere, like Bavel is the lion, that has a very strong impact on how we think about ourselves. It's using a sign, a symbol, an icon that we're familiar with, and sort of using it against us. So it has a psychological impact as well. And this is going to relate to how we look at Galut in general in terms of lions. And that's an idea that was born in Galut Bavel, the first real Galut as an entire nation detached from its country.